The garage door is up just a few inches, enough to let in a blade of light that cuts across the concrete floor. It's 6 in the morning, and Daniel is on his knees in that light, wiping down a fender with a cloth so soft it looks like it belongs in a nursery, not a garage. The car underneath his hands is a 1967 Mustang, faded cherry red. One headlight slightly dimmer than the other because he still hasn't found the right replacement bulb after 3 years of looking.
He's not going anywhere. There's no drive planned. He just wanted 10 minutes alone with it before his kids wake up and the house turns into noise again. He runs the cloth over the same 6 inches of hood for the 4th time. His wife will tell you he does this most mornings. She used to ask why. She stopped asking a while ago. This is the part nobody puts in the car magazines.
The mechanical stuff, sure, everyone warned you about that. The leaking gaskets, the parts you can't find, the mechanic who looks at you like you just asked him to perform surgery with a butter knife. That's the surface. That's the story people tell at parties because it's funny and it makes them sound a little bit heroic, like they're wrestling some stubborn old beast into submission every weekend.
But sit with someone like Daniel long enough, watch him long enough, and you start to notice something underneath all of it that has nothing to do with carburetors. He bought that car 2 months after his father died. He'll tell you it was a coincidence. He'd always wanted a Mustang, he'll say, ever since he was a teenager. And the timing just happened to line up because an estate sale forced his hand. But ask him what his father drove when Daniel was a kid, and his voice changes.
Same car. Different year, different color, but same car. His father used to take him out on Sunday mornings before anyone else in the house was awake. Just the two of them. Windows down, radio low, driving nowhere in particular. Those Sunday mornings were the only time his father was ever quiet in a good way. Not the silence of a man who was tired or distracted or disappointed, which was most of the week. A peaceful silence. A silence that felt like being chosen.
So when Daniel wipes that fender at 6 in the morning before his kids wake up, he's not maintaining a car. He's trying to recreate a feeling he only ever got in 20-minute doses as a boy and never knew how to ask for directly, because you don't ask a father like that for more affection. You just wait for the next Sunday and hope it comes. The car is a container for something he's been trying to hold on to since he was 9 years old. It just happens to have 4 wheels and a stubborn electrical system. You see this pattern everywhere once you know to look for it. The man restoring a truck that's identical to the one his grandfather used to load hay bales onto. The woman who spent $11,000 on a Carmen Ghia because her mother had one in a photograph from before she was born. A mother she barely got to know before she passed. And now the car is the closest thing she has to a memory that isn't secondhand.
People will tell you they love the design, the engineering, the era. And they're not lying exactly. But underneath the love of the object is almost always a love of a person or a time or a version of themselves that felt safer than the version they became. Here's the part that's harder to say out loud. A lot of these people are not actually happy owning these cars. Ask any classic car forum and you'll find thousands of posts from people quietly venting about how much money they've sunk into something that barely runs.
How many weekends they've lost to it. How their spouse has started referring to the car like it's a rival for their attention. And yet almost none of them sell. They complain and they keep going. That's not stubbornness. That's grief wearing a tool belt. Because if the car is really a stand-in for a person or a memory or a feeling you can't get back any other way, then selling it doesn't feel like selling a car. It feels like losing the person twice. Think about what maintenance actually is when you strip away the mechanical definition. Maintenance is the act of refusing to let something you love disappear. You do it slowly, in small, unglamorous moments, usually when nobody's watching, and it rarely feels like enough. And you do it anyway, because the alternative is worse. That's not a car thing. That's every relationship you've ever tried to keep alive past its natural expiration date. That's the friendship you keep texting even though the replies come slower every year. That's the guitar you never learned to play well but can't bring yourself to sell because your uncle taught you 3 chords on it before he moved away. We call it different things depending on the object, but it's the same behavior. We are all somewhere in a garage at 6 in the morning running a cloth over the same 6 inches,
trying to keep something from fading that we were never actually going to be able to keep forever. And this is where owning a classic car gets interesting psychologically, because the car eventually forces a confrontation that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. A modern car is disposable. You expect it to fail eventually. You trade it in, you don't grieve it. It was never meant to last. But a classic car is old on purpose. You chose something that was already fragile, already fighting time, and you signed up to fight alongside it. Every time it breaks down, you're reminded that the thing you love is not permanent, and neither is the version of you that loves it this way. Daniel is 44 now. He is not the 9-year-old boy in the passenger seat anymore. Some mornings, wiping down that fender, he'll catch his own reflection in the paint, and for half a second, he doesn't recognize the face looking back. That's not really about the car either.
That's about the strange, quiet horror of realizing you have become an adult, standing in for the child who used to need saving, and now there's no one left to do the saving but you. Some people get to that realization and it breaks something loose in them, some grief they'd been driving around with for years without unpacking it. Others just keep polishing the fender and never go near the feeling at all, because facing it would mean admitting the person they were trying to hold on to is actually gone.
And the car was never going to bring him back. It was only ever going to help them pretend a little while longer. Both responses are human. Neither one is wrong. But the ones who eventually let themselves feel it, who let the car be a car and the grief be grief, those are usually the ones who end up actually enjoying the driving again. Not the maintaining, the driving. Windows down, radio low, going nowhere in particular.
The same way it used to feel, before it became a project, before it became a stand-in, before it became a way of avoiding something. Because that's the real truth nobody tells you about owning a classic car. It was never really about the car. It's about what we do with the parts of ourselves we can't fix any other way. We find an object old enough, broken enough, in need of enough care,
and we pour ourselves into keeping it alive, because some quieter part of us knows we couldn't keep the original thing alive, whatever that thing was. A person, a summer, a version of home that doesn't exist anymore except in the smell of vinyl seats warmed by afternoon sun. Everybody has a version of that garage. Maybe yours doesn't have an engine in it. Maybe it's a box of letters you've never reread but can't throw away. Or a habit you picked up from someone you lost and kept doing long after they were gone.
Small enough that nobody else would ever notice. Big enough that it's the closest thing you have to still hearing their voice. So maybe the real question isn't why he spends every morning polishing a car that barely runs. Maybe it's what you're still quietly holding on to, that you've never once let yourself call by its real name. If this video gave you something to sit with, even for a minute, that means more to me than any view count ever could.
Making these takes real time and thought, and if you'd like to help keep this channel going, you can buy me a coffee through the link in the description, or join as a member if you want to support in an ongoing way. No pressure at all, just know that every bit of support helps me keep telling stories like this one. Thank you for actually being here, and not just watching, but listening.